I think all cardiovascular conditions have got worse because of the vaccine. And anything and everything that can go wrong with the heart has gone wrong with the heart as a result of these mRNA vaccines. There's no doubt about it. And that's why me and Peter both separately had essentially said, because if doctors are not aware of a possible diagnosis, they'll never diagnose it. So many doctors still, unfortunately, including cardiologists, are not even conceiving of the possibility that the mRNA vaccine can cause these problems. But the list is there, it's endorsed by the WHO, whether it's cardiac arrhythmias, atrial fibrillation, heart attacks, myocarditis, heart failure. And I've managed all of these people in the community who have been vaccine injured, where their doctors have missed it, but I picked it up.
Fascinating. Let's pause for a moment. I'm remembering this video that I watched that someone had put together online. You both came up with a particular phrase, which was "until proven otherwise." Some of the viewers might be familiar with this. I want to figure out, did you independently, what does it mean, number one? And two, did you both independently come up with it? And third, I'm going to ask you how you know each other and when you started talking to each other, because you've come to some similar conclusions.
Yeah, I think in terms of the until proven otherwise, I think we came up with it independently because I got to think that it was trying to capture people's attention for cardiologist doctors to understand that these so-called unexplained events that were happening where it doesn't fit. If that's the case with a cardiac issue, then you have to include as part of your differential diagnosis the side effect of the vaccine in there. So it's trying to just shift the discussion rather than as a default, right? Unless you've got another clear explanation why someone suffered a sudden cardiac death or had a heart attack or an rhythm problem, that you have to consider it being the vaccine until you've proven that there's another more likely cause. So that was really to capture, and I'm sure Peter probably did the same thing. And then in terms of, I can't remember, Peter, when we started actually speaking to each other or communicating.
It's been a while. He uses texting a lot. He's younger, so he's in that text generation. But I have really a substantial experience on data safety monitoring boards for the NIH, for Big Pharma. I've done this for decades. When people are in a study or it's in a post-marketing period in a brand new drug, when someone dies within a few days, or certainly within 30 days of any new drug or injection, it is that drug until proven otherwise. If this was in a regulatory dossier, even something that's seemingly disconnected, believe it or not, in clinical trials, if someone's taking a drug and they have a car accident, it's attributed to the drug because the drug may have made them dizzy or foggy or what have you. So we always, to be conservative, we actually put it on the new drug or the new injection or the new vaccine. That's just good regulatory science. So when the deaths started to come in after the vaccine, unless we had something very obvious, a drug overdose of something else, a suicide attempt, or just something obvious, it wasn't else.
A very clear cause.
Yeah. Or there was an autopsy that said, they died of a perforated appendix or something. It is the vaccine until proven otherwise. Then once we learn that the vaccine causes myocarditis, that was in June of 2021. The FDA says it causes myocarditis. The WHO anticipated this. The NIH anticipated this. And then the myocarditis cases started coming in with the publication of fatal cases. So there's fatal cases, they undergo an autopsy, and the pathologists agree they died of fatal myocarditis. Now it's in the peer-reviewed literature, 2021, New England Journal of Medicine, by Verma and colleagues from Washington University in St. Louis. We had Choi in Korea, and Gill from Connecticut and Michigan and Minnesota, that trio. Published on 2 boys who died of Pfizer vaccine, and it's clear now in circulation in our best cardiology research journal, Pittone and colleagues from the UK, 100 fatal cases where the UK doctors put as the #1 diagnosis on the death certificate, fatal vaccine-induced myocarditis. We have it now. The next person who dies out there, and there's no explanation, it is the vaccine until the family comes out and tells us they didn't take the vaccine. And every family that remains silent, the assumption is they took the vaccine and now the family is in a spiral of regret, remorse, feeling guilty about what happened. That's probably what's going on behind. Now families can clear this up. Anybody listening to this tape, If the families come out and say they did not take the vaccine, then we can take the spotlight off the vaccine.
It seems to make perfect sense as you're describing this right now, but I feel like I've been programmed to believe otherwise.
Yeah, I think the other thing to add in, which we haven't discussed yet as well, is I think an element of people almost accepting to some degree that these side effects, which they wrongly believe are rare, is acceptable, is because they also have a false perception of benefit of the vaccine. So one of the discussions I've had with even doctors who are in normal circumstances good critical thinkers, hold on a minute, Aseem, haven't we ended the pandemic because of the vaccine? How about all these lives that are saved? How come COVID is not, it's not killing people anymore? No. COVID mutated independent of the vaccine. It's become milder. That's what happens to these viruses. You can take the vaccine out. Somebody asked me the question the other day, if we didn't have the vaccine at all, would we be in a better or worse position than we are now? Honest answer is we don't know, but I think we'd be better off if we didn't even have the vaccine at all. We would have had probably less harm to the population.
Okay, big statement. And why? What is the data that supports
you go
this?
back to the very basics of the original randomized control trial. The vaccine showed you were more likely to have a serious, and this is in a healthier subgroup population, which were chosen by Pfizer and Moderna, you were more likely to suffer a serious adverse event from the vaccine to be hospitalized with COVID. And that is during the original ancestral Wuhan strain. Think about that. You've got the same effect of harm from the vaccine, and even in the worst possible wave, it was still more harmful. The virus has mutated to become less harmful, and you've still got the same level of harm with the vaccine. It's a no-brainer. I mean, I think that you can make a very strong case that societies would have been much better off without this mRNA technology. AstraZeneca, I mean, that was in effect suspended in the UK. Even though it wasn't made public, they kind of slowly phased it out. But when you look at the yellow card reporting, and this is in a country of a population of 60 million, we had 1 million yellow card reports from AstraZeneca, which is just extraordinary. And it was publicized in news reports of a rare clotting effect or a rare issue. We know now it wasn't rare at all. So I think these vaccines have had a hugely negative impact on society, on health. And of course, everything that's gone with it has eroded trust as well in medicine.
And just to add to what you were saying, that these vaccines were designed for this original variant, right? So basically, they would have been most efficacious if they were efficacious on those early variants than the ones today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something else which we talk about, the psychopathic determinants of health. I think what was most criminal is telling people who had natural immunity to take the vaccine. Because some evidence suggests you were 3 times more likely to suffer a serious adverse event if you had COVID and then you took the vaccine, certainly within the first few months after it. It's beyond criminal, Jan. Let's just call it out for what it is.